setup. We just do shit in my cousin's car with a snowball mic.
Yeah, I mean, we started when we started doing this, we had like a shitty snowball mic, and by like episode 12 or so, I'm like, oh, this mic's not cutting it, blah blah blah. So we went out and we got like a Blue Yeti for like $100. And I got another Yeti Nano that I use sometimes, like when I'm out and about. But then, as it turned out, we weren't using the mic correctly, and so like the input on the mic was set to the laptop microphone. So we plugged in the snowball mic, but it was still recording off of the laptop.
Oh no!
So like anyone who was right near the laptop sounded crystal clear, and everyone else was just like way back in the room somewhere. You know, it was so terrible. But like, I mean, that's what you do, is you like figure shit out as you go. I so much prefer recording in person. Like, I never get to do it. It's always on Zoom.
Yeah.
But so listeners, that voice you hear. Well, okay. There's a little bit of backstory to this. I have turned hanging out into bars and breweries into a profession. There's a little bit of a hazard that goes along with that, is like any drunkard who has any idea or thinks they're creative at all wants to tell you about their novel or their idea for a class that you should do or whatever. And I was hanging out at my favorite dive bar in Plymouth, and this guy's like, blah, 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 I want to be a stand-up comedian. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And then I was like, oh, we run comedy shows. And he's like, hey, was it Mike Walsh, right?
Yeah.
It was like, oh, you should, meet Andy. And he's like, are you Andy? Became a whole thing. And little did I know that he was like mad serious and is putting in the work. And and that person, I should probably introduce and not just call him he, is Jimmy Doherty. Welcome, man.
Happy to be here. It's gonna be fun.
So has it been a full year of doing comedy yet?
No. I started hitting open mics in November, and then I met you in January.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, you gotta, talk to AJ, do some open mics. If AJ likes you, he'll put you on some shows, which he did. And now every time I talk to you, you're like, oh, I just did this one. I just was here. I was just doing the open mic here. Like, you're serious. And I don't mean, like, I hope you don't take offense to that. There's just so many people I know that say, like, I want to insert something here, but they don't really want to do it.
Yeah.
They just like the idea of...
Yeah, I've noticed that just from doing it, or like a lot of friends or just random people, like, I think you've inspired me to give it a shot. I'm like, okay, come to the open mic. And they're like, I'm not ready.
Yeah, or they're like, oh, I'm busy. And you're like, well, if it's what you love, you kind of work your schedule around it, and it becomes your thing.
Yeah, I mean, it took me... I just turned 32 yesterday.
Oh, that's right. I saw that. Happy birthday.
And... it took me this long to find my passion,
which is still pretty early, man. Like that's pretty good.
Yeah, but I didn't think I could ever be happy without a passion, so I was just kind of floating along before this. I can't remember the last time I worked this hard at something.
What was it? Like, what was there, like a Netflix special or something where, like, what made you go, yeah, I want to do that?
So in the back of my mind, I've always been a funny guy, like to the point where, like, it's kind of been just my personality. And some people will tell you, oh, like, Jimmy D's the funniest guy I've ever met.
Yeah.
And some people will be like, that guy is so obnoxious, I can't stand him. But so it's always been in my mind that I'm funny, and like I've always consumed a lot of comedy. I started watching like South Park and SNL way too young.
Yeah. So
it's always been in the back of my mind that it would be cool to be a comedian, but when I think about it, I was like, I have no idea how to write a joke. And then I was hanging out actually down the street from here at a Halloween party in October, last October. And my friend from high school is trying to become a songwriter and just started a band. We were just talking at this party, and he was like trying to get this open mic in Carver like popping off because not enough people were showing up to it.
Yeah.
So he was like, hey, do you want to try and do a 5-minute set of comedy? And I was like, I'll give it a shot. And so I went there, and I was just having fun performing for like 7 people at a brewery. And I didn't have any expectations of it until actually that night I met Mike Walsh.
You met him there?
No, so I met him the
okay.
first time I tried the Proof 22 mic. It was the first time I ever like branched out from the Brewery 44.
Yep.
And
R.I.P.
Yeah. They're almost gone now. Is it?
Yeah, I think
this month?
the 27th, I think, is their last day.
Yeah, I gotta pop back in there.
Yeah.
Can't lose that memory. But the Proof 22 was the first time I branched out. I went to that open mic, and there was like 50 people in the bar. And I got everybody's attention, and like everybody was laughing. And I was like, this is awesome. And Mike didn't even actually see me do the stand-up set. I just went over to the BBC, and I was like, I just killed that.
Yeah.
And I just got to talking to him, and he was like, yeah, you should meet Andy. But so that was definitely a turning point. And then after meeting AJ and him putting me on one of his shows, then I started to treat it like work.
Yeah, and that's an interesting like point, and it's always been one of those things where I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm like, it's like you start off being like, oh, I want to be an artist, or I want to be a musician, whatever, and then you're, emailing and cold calling places to get gigs, or you're, showing your portfolio, and you're like, oh, this feels like it. There's a difference from doing it because you're like, oh, I just enjoy doing it, to like, oh, I'm doing this as work. And I think if you can make that transition, because some of it sucks, I spend a lot of my day emailing people, and I fucking hate doing it.
Yeah, it's been easier and harder than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
In the sense where, like I said before, I could never even dream of how to write a joke until I tried.
Yeah.
Until I really applied myself to it. So in that sense, it was easier because I just stopped trying and did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the other hand, I didn't realize how much writing jokes is a grind.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I have to bring my notebooks with me everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I can't ever lose a thought. I'm thinking about it all day. I'm just writing all day. I'll be at work at my 9 to 5. Just I gotta whip out the notebook right now.
Right, I thought of something. If I don't write it down,
So I have to think about it all day. And when I sit down and write jokes, I just obsess over it. And then I just realize I'm just I just freaked out over this paper for 3 straight hours. And then grinding, having to go. I've hit 16 mics in the last 2 weeks.
And see that's to me. That's when. Yeah, I remember not too long ago. There may have been a significant amount of alcohol involved, because we always hang out at the British Beer Company, where there's always a significant amount of alcohol involved. And you were like, "Oh man, I owe you," and I'm like, "You don't owe me anything." All I did was say, "Call AJ." Because to me, that's the number of people who reached out to me, and I'd be like, call AJ. And I never hear from them again. Because it's just because I know AJ is going to be like, well, sign up for an open mic that we run, and, and go from there. And just that is enough to keep people away. But 16 nights, and I don't know what you say, 16 shows, and
16 open mics in 2 weeks.
That's crazy. So that's when you tell, okay, this dude is fucking serious. And that's when I started being like, all right, Jimmy's no joke. He's I get it. This is work. I have to put the time in. And I think that's why AJ is I'm going to give this dude all the shots I can, because people are too readily, or they start off and they go real strong, and then, oh, no. Okay. They start off real strong, and then, I had a flat tire, and I got to get my tire, and then all of a sudden, that little hiccup in their life derails them. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I got to get back to it, but I don't feel like, I feel like you would hitchhike.
Yeah.
To get there and be like, well, I'll fucking figure out the car later.
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of compliments, but the best one I got, where a lot of I've been getting called talented a lot for the first time, which is cool, but the best compliment I got is I did a show in Taunton, And one of the other comedians after the show was like, you haven't been doing this for very long? And he was like, there's a lot of people who've been doing it 3 years that are coasting on just being funny. But he was like, I can tell you care about your jokes and work harder than a lot of these other comedians.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was the best compliment you can get.
Yeah, because, I mean, that person knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember, have you met Sam Rossi yet?
No.
I mean, when he first started doing our virtual shows during COVID, he was like 17, so he's probably like 20, 21 now. And he was doing one of our shows, and, you know, he was doing a set, whatever, and did really well. And one of the comics after him, like, how old was that kid? 17? Fuck you. And they're like, I didn't even know what I wanted to do when I was 17. And it was so funny because, like, but, like, that kid did the work, you know, like,
yeah.
And that's, I like you were saying, oh, you know, it took me 32 years to figure out what I want to do. I still think that's super early. Like, I still don't really know what the fuck I want to do. But, I mean, I think it's like, so you said talented, and I'm curious, are you cool with someone saying, like, oh, you're so talented?
I see where you're coming from.
I hate it.
It's just kind of cool because I've never stood out at anything before.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a okay basketball player, play pickup games. I'm a dungeon master. But nobody ever calls me talented with my other hobbies, so
Yeah.
it was kind of cool to hear it. But, yeah, like, hardworking,
It's
definitely
just like
a better
you would
compliment.
never go to, like, a brain surgeon and be like, oh, my God, you're so talented.
Yeah.
Because it's not a talent. Like, they've committed their life.
Yeah, it was
like,
dedication.
Yeah, it's dedication. It's hard work. It's a lot of failure. And I don't like it because I feel like, and I think this is, you can pretty much creative fields across the creative jobs across the field. Doesn't matter what you do. Like, if you go to, like, a little kid in kindergarten, be like, can you sing? The kid's like, yeah. Like, can you draw? Yeah. Can you tell a joke? Yeah. Can you dance? Yeah. And then at some point, late elementary school into middle school, suddenly no one can do it. And
Yeah.
if you can, you're talented. It's like, it's not talent. It's like, I never stopped doing that from when I was little and just worked all the way through. And it's like, I hate when people use it because I think it prevents people from trying to do what they might love.
Yeah, that was one of my other barriers is, like, I think subconsciously I just thought all these comedians that I admired were just naturals.
Yeah, and it's that illusion of, like, you've never heard of someone until they get a Netflix special.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you're like, oh, this guy just showed up one day and had, like, an hour and 15 minutes of funny shit that destroyed. And you're like,
that's how it is with comedy. Like, and with music, you see, like, people will, like, release stuff. They're like, oh, this was like a film of us playing in our garage like 15 years ago, stuff like that. So sometimes with musicians, you can see it.
yeah.
But
I think
not so much with comedians.
I think with comedians you can see it too. Like, if you go back and, like, find old footage
Yeah.
of comics, even not even old comics. Josh Adams, who's been on the show, like, when we started doing shows live, he was probably right where you're at, maybe like a little further in, like a year maybe. And since then, it's been 3-ish years, and just in that amount of time, like, he's been so serious about it. I'm like, he's crushing. Like, he's so funny. And
Yeah, he's a beast.
yeah, and, like, there's even been shows where, like, the headliner canceled last minute, whatever, and AJ is like, hey, Josh, you're headlining. And he's like, what? And he destroyed. Like, absolutely destroyed. And it just, I hate that word talent. Because if you're going to sit and draw for you, or if you're going to do open mic jokes, whether you're serious, whether you just want to do it as a hobby, like, you shouldn't feel that everything you do is going to be the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
Like, some of it's going to be crap.
Yeah, I've been trying out a Karen Reed joke that in my head is such a banger.
Yeah.
And I haven't got a single laugh the 2 times I tried it.
I wouldn't laugh at it because I barely know who she is, and I'm
Yeah,
like the
that's
only person.
Yeah, it's a crowd specific thing because to get the joke, you'll not only need to know a little bit about the case, you need to know what she looks like.
Oh, okay. It's for the listeners who don't. Because I don't even know if it's a national story.
It's an international story.
Is
at
it an
this point.
international? Okay. Like I
uh,
just somehow have managed to just.
But yeah, I have friends from here that, like from around here, that are like, yeah, I haven't really heard much. I've heard the name, and then
I know people who are friends who are obsessed about it.
Yeah, my grandmother's obsessed. But then I heard, like, I was talking to my friend in California about it, and he knew all about it. Like,
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm not going to explain it to listeners. They can fucking Google it themselves.
Yeah. The joke is, the opening line of the joke is, I can't tell if Karen Reed's hot or if she's get away with murder hot.
Yeah, and it's. Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I just am not interested, and I feel I feel like true crime is so popular that this case is just like hitting at the right time where everyone's into it.
I wouldn't be into it otherwise, but like I'm trying to improve. Topical comedy is not my strength.
Yeah.
I'm better at like personal stories and misdirection jokes. I'm not really good with like topical humor, so I've been practicing it.
You spend a lot of time poking fun at yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and your dating life, and I think that's really good. And it's but I mean that's kind of the point where you should be. It's like you're kind of figuring out, like, not everybody's a topical comic.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody's a one-line comic. Not everybody's, whatever. But, I think it's good that you're trying to, like, write outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, because topical comedy is kind of sucks for the comedian because you can write an absolute great joke and then it's going to be worthless in 6 months.
Yeah, and there's comics that I'm sure we both know, who we won't mention by name, but they'll do jokes and you're like, bro, that's like a 20-year-old joke. Like,
yeah,
that's not, half the room doesn't even know who you're talking about. And it's, I was kind of like taken aback, being like, I can't believe you rolled out a joke about a topic that old. And it just, it's tough because you kind of have to be like, all right, I'm going to get laughs for 6 months if I'm lucky out of this joke and then throw it away.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot of things that like last forever. Like you could make an OJ joke, but you couldn't probably make it too detailed.
Yeah, or you couldn't make it like, oh, Judge Ito this.
Yeah.
People are like, who the fuck's Judge Ito? You know?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, just, there are jokes. I mean, like, you do jokes about dating, and I feel like that is universal and will always be universal, you know? I mean, some of it you may have to change. You reference some anime that I've never heard of.
Oh, that joke's a banger.
Yeah, but you reference some anime that I don't know.
This guy doesn't even know what a Kekkei Genkai is.
That, whatever that is. It just sounds like something dirty you Googled. But like, that joke will always be good. You might just have to change, like, okay, what's the popular anime? You know, that kind of thing.
I like that joke because... And I had friends tell me that you should say like Super Saiyan or something about Pokemon that like some people will resonate or at least recognize. But I think the fact that it's slightly obscure is moderately obscure. It makes it funnier.
Yeah, the people. Well, there's two. You're gonna get two kinds of laughs at it. You're gonna get people who laugh, go, "Oh, this guy's a big dork."
Yeah,
because he's making reference to something. And then you're going to get a different level of laugh of the people who understand what you're referencing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, God. There's an Irish comic. His name's Dara O'Brien. And he does a whole bit about playing video games that's fucking hysterical. It's like one of the funniest bits I've ever seen. And he's like, oh, one of my favorite things about doing this is it's not the people who are sitting in the audience laughing. He's like, it's the non-gamers in the videos who are like looking around them being like, why is everyone laughing? I don't get crouch, kneel, crouch. Yeah. What is going? I don't get it. You know? And
he's just like reciting cheat codes or something, and they're like, type of stuff.
I'll show you the bit afterwards. It is so funny, but it is that kind of like, if you aren't a video gamer, have never played video games in any capacity. Like I wouldn't call myself a gamer, but it's a funny bit because I. But if you're not into that sort of thing, you're just like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah, it is funny because like if I don't get a laugh at the Keke Genkai tag, I'll be like, oh, none of you guys are nerds. What a lame crowd.
Have you? I mean, I'm sure you have. It's kind of a rhetorical question, but like, have you like really bombed yet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've bombed. I should bomb more, to be honest with you. I sometimes panic and go back to my best material when I really should be practicing other stuff.
Yeah.
But the time that sticks out to me is my second time ever trying comedy. Not the only time.
Yeah.
But it sticks out to me because I had no idea what I was doing. And you're supposed to just like practice the jokes that you're good at, but when you don't know it,
when you've done it once,
yeah.
You're like, I don't know what the hell's good.
So I went back and I was like, when I sat down and finally I wrote a bunch of jokes, like everything I could think of. And then I told the best jokes out of those that I could think of at the first time I did it. The second time I did all the scraps. All the second list. And everybody just stared at me the whole time. And I started rushing my jokes because I wasn't getting any laughs. And I started choking.
Yeah.
And the only laugh I got that whole time was because I had to compose myself. So I was like, I'm choking right now. I stepped away from the mic, took a deep breath, walked back up to the mic, and I was like, that was a fake choke. The only laugh I got.
But, I mean, and I think some of that comes with, experiences like some comics can really handle when a joke goes south, even I think I talked about this in the last episode that I recorded. Kendra Landsberg, super fucking funny, and she does this whole bit about how like she got her COVID shot, and then she's got like in the same arm she has like her birth control implant or whatever.
Like the IUD or something like that.
Yeah. And she's like, oh my God, guys, in my arm there's so much science right now. Like, this side of my arm is keeping me from killing old people by accident, and this side of my arm is keeping me from killing babies on purpose.
Yeah, yeah, I think I've heard that. I want to say I've seen that on like an Instagram reel. Yeah, that's hilarious.
And I was in a room once, and it was fucking crickets. Like, that's the kind of joke where, like, people can be like, oh, rah, rah, but there was nothing. Like, absolute silence. And she was just like, fuck you guys, that joke's funny. And I died laughing.
Yeah.
To me, that was the hysterical part, is like how she handled it.
Yeah, that's always funny. That's funny, especially other comedians, like when you don't get the reaction and then you say something. My go-to is I'm like, you guys are sleeping.
Yeah.
Like Nestor will laugh at that.
Yeah.
But,
do you find, because there's several comics that are have a similar style, but you're very kind of soft-spoken and kind of mellow chill, which I think it's harder in comedy because I think people are used to comics being more like animated and shit.
Yeah.
Like, do you find it?
So I've been just having a little internal struggle over this recently, where I look at comedians that I respect, and most of them are very expressive and boisterous, and I look at some comedians that I don't like, and they're very mellow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not trying to be like Anthony Jeselnik. No disrespect to him, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to be more, or at least this is the struggle I've been having, where like a lot of people tell me, they're like, oh, it would be so hard to replicate your persona on stage, and like the dark, like mellow, monotone, like drawn out form of speech is like a whole character.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I leaned into it for a while, but part of the reason why I said Wednesday was my best set ever is I totally just had the confidence to flip it. I did a joke where I start to like panic.
Yeah.
Or like the joke is like, I was having an argument with my mom and I start to panic and freak out about the state of the world.
Yeah.
And I I crouched down and looked away from the crowd and had my hands in my hair, and I was freaking out. And then I stood up, took a deep breath, composed myself, and delivered the punchline, and it killed. Like, I'm trying to be more like that.
Yeah.
At least that's now what I'm thinking. But it's just hard because, like, I talked to another comedian like 2 weeks ago that books shows, and he was in love with the whole mellow.
And I mean, it's you're still finding your style. So like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the idea of you like, oh, I'm gonna try this tonight and try that. I think that's great. But I mean, like, Stephen Wright is the most mellow person.
Yeah, or like Dimitri Martin. That's another one that.
We even did a show, and I can't remember who went up before him, but like super energetic, like walking all over the stage and like really loud and interactive with the crowd. And then Alex Giampapa got up afterwards, and he is just like the biggest stoner. He's just like, wow. It's just like, I said to AJ afterwards, I'm like, I think I got whiplash from how just they both crushed, absolutely crushed, but it was so like polar opposite, you know. And so I mean, they each have their place. It's just like trying to figure out, you know, like what works for you, and like just don't do puppets.
Yeah, it's like half of my jokes are very dark and half of my jokes are very silly goose. Mm-hmm. And so the dark jokes play into the mellow persona, but my silly goose jokes, and I'm all mellow, like pretending the microphone is my dick, like
Yeah.
I'm like, that doesn't really make sense. But like when I'm doing like jokes about my dad dying, and I'm like up here, like that doesn't really make sense. So I'm trying to balance everything.
Yeah, and it's some of it is just trying to figure out like where that joke, Jesus Christ, where that joke belongs in your set. And yeah, it's I'm now fascinated with you because I'm like, oh, this is like someone starting their journey who's like really gonna put in the work, and like where you are, like, I'm gonna try this tonight. And you know, like, I've seen lots of comics kill, but you're probably the person who gets happy. Like, you're always like, yeah, like I can see the energy, like when you do well, that like you're excited about it.
Yeah. Chris tried to burst my bubble one time. He's like Chris Houghton.
Chris Houghton, never heard of him.
Yeah, he's a scrub. Oh, I wasn't supposed to.
No, we can shit on Chris.
Okay.
I actually just saw him. I was at Knockabout on Monday, and I'm like, like I haven't seen him in fucking ages, so it's just instantly like we're shitting on each other, and I'm like, I miss this.
Yeah, he told me I was only supposed to describe them, so we'll go back and say the guy with the weird face.
Yeah, he looks like the preppy guy that you definitely don't want to date your daughter.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna do a roast battle against him at some point.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, yeah, Chris was like bursting my bubble because I was gassed. I was like, that was my best set, I think, to date at a show like 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago now.
Yeah.
And he was like, don't get that head too big. You could always bomb. I thought about what he said, and I was like, I'm just going to ride the lows really hard and ride the highs really hard because that's the best way to learn, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, you know, I think you learn more from failing than you do from succeeding. And I don't know what it is about stand-up comedy, but I feel like when you fucking die on stage, there's something about it. It's, you know, it's almost like you've seen like the old like fucking Vietnam movies where like the new guy comes in and no one respects him until he gets like injured. And it's almost like until you die on stage, like the other comics are like, fuck this guy. And then they see you die on stage and they make fun of you, and then that's kind of like your badge of honor.
Yeah.
Because you come back at that point. Like, I think that's it. It's not just you die on stage. It's you die on stage and then you come back.
Yeah, the other significant bomb was the first time I ever did a set in Boston.
Yeah.
Cam Morton does a open mic every Tuesday that you have to sign up for. Mm-hmm. I think it's like 18 comics, and he like kind of markets it as a show.
Yeah.
So that people will come watch.
Mm-hmm.
And another comedian suggested that I get in touch with him, so he had me on. This was like back beginning of March. I went up, crickets. I had to go like after this girl who like absolutely killed, and like the crowd was a lot of comedians, and comedians sometimes don't pay attention to other comedians.
Yeah, because they're sitting there writing in their notebook and trying to like work on their set.
And like the only people that were in there that weren't comedians that were there for the event was women.
Yeah.
And there was a girl, I'm drawing a blank on her, Alexis something. She's phenomenal. She's so funny. She goes up and kills. And I had to follow her.
Yeah.
And I got crickets. But even before that, like, she was killing because all the women loved her, part of the reason.
Yeah.
But even before her, in my mind, all the other comics were killing because I was laughing.
Yep.
And my buddy was laughing, and then I was in a bad mood after I bombed, and then I was like, maybe it was just me and my buddy laughing the whole time. But like, yeah, I bombed, and like, I was trying to network and like talk to comedians. I'd never met any of these people besides the girl who told me to get in touch with Cam.
Yeah.
And I was trying to talk to them, and nobody was friendly that night.
Yeah.
They just like didn't want to talk to me. They're like, sorry, you bombed, bro. The next week, or like the next month, I went again, and like great comedians were on there. AJ was even on there, and like I had the best set of the night. It was like in terms of reaction, like the crowd loved it, and like a bunch of the comedians that didn't want to talk to me the month before were like sought me out.
Yeah.
And it was the best feeling.
And sometimes it's as much at like I've been to shows where the room just doesn't fucking want to laugh.
Yeah.
And or like one comic gets up and they bomb for whatever reason, and it throws off the like you kind of need all the comics to kind of build towards the headliner.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a venue owner, and he's like, "Oh, I get really anxious when the opener is not getting laughs." I'm like, "They're not really supposed. I mean, they're supposed to get laughs, but that's the dude with the least amount of experience. Like, you don't want to put a guy up first that fucking destroys, and then everybody else has to like. That's not how the show builds. It's supposed to get funnier, and so like it's always interesting. Like, I've seen comics that I'm like, they're okay, but like if they're in the right lineup, in the right spot in the lineup, they do so much better because the crowd's warmed up, and their jokes are just hitting better. So it's I think creating the lineup is almost as much of a craft as creating your set.
Yeah. I haven't gotten into any of that yet.
Yeah.
I did actually. Some guy did offer me a room. I kind of lucked into it, or maybe not. My friend told this guy that owns a bar that I'm a comedian, and he was like, "Come back here and take a look at this room." And I was getting excited. He's like, "We have a stage and everything."
Yeah. And
I go back, and I'm like, "You can fit 10 people in here." I'm like, but I do have a room, I guess.
But it's one of those things. It's so hard, man. Like, I never realized before I got involved in this how many like top quality comics are in this area.
Yeah,
and it's
unbelievable.
And then they're all trying to like run shows and be on shows, and it's not a very big area.
Yeah, there's 3,000 people in the Boston Comedians group on Facebook.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah,
That's
and
crazy.
to be fair, it's kind of more like a New England comedian page. It's called Boston Comedians, but yeah, there's a whole lot of people in it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure some are venue people are just fans of comics, but
yeah,
I mean, and so it's just like you can go see a comedy show any night of the week without really making too big of an effort. And hell, in Plymouth, I mean, you could probably see 6 or 7 just downtown in a month, because there's a lot. And maybe some aren't still going on, but at one point I counted there was 7 going on downtown Plymouth.
Yeah, we gotta get back to that.
I don't think it's a good thing, because I don't think there's a crowd.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We gotta get the crowd.
Yeah, and that's
to sustain something like that.
To me, that's it's part of the problem. Is like, I don't think there was the crowd there that needed. Because I've had friends that own venues that are like, "Oh, can we do a comedy show?" I'm like, "No, you're 6 buildings down from where I run New World. why would I do that? You know,
Yeah.
because it's not. It'd be one thing if we were turning people away at the door every single time we did a show at New World.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, yeah, fine. There's enough people that want to see comedy, but like when you're like trying to get enough that like the show doesn't get canceled or something, you're like, no, there's not enough to keep that, you know, level of people coming. And then, you know, they try it, and then they're like, oh, we're canceled. And you're like, yeah, no shit. Yeah, but I mean, it's tough from a venue standpoint. Like, venues see other venues do it, and they're like, oh, well, let's do that. I'm like, do something different. Come up with something. Even an open mic is good, because, you know, comics will come out for those, and just trying to figure out, you know, keep shit different. Do live podcasts. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
Do you, like, is your end game, like, Jimmy Doherty's Netflix special? Like, do you have, like, like an end point, like, where you're planning?
I'm not really looking at that right now.
Yeah.
I just got to stay focused on what's ahead of me. And for right now, that's finding more people to book me.
Yeah.
As the next step. I want to just reach more people, have the opportunity to perform more, like at shows and not just mics.
Yeah.
Because, like, talking to Josh Adams one time, he's like, gonna practice new material at a show, which is like crazy to me. And I'm like,
but that's the only way you know if it works.
I mean, well, you get a lot of feedback at open mics, so like that's where I'm at right now.
Oh yeah,
like,
I suppose. I mean, to me, that's kind of I see what you're saying. Like, I was kind of putting those two together. You know?
Yeah. So like him, like he's at the point where he does enough shows that if a joke misses, it's nothing to him. Where like I'm devastated. Like I did a joke about being a rapper at the New World show that you saw me at, and it bombed. It bombed hard. Like every other joke, I at least did pretty good. That joke, a whole 2-minute bit, just bombed hard. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, but I mean, so when you have that, are you like, okay, I'm never doing that again? Or are you like, I have to go back and kind of tweak and figure out how to make it funny?
Yeah, that joke, it could be a number of things in my experience. Now, with that joke, I got to read the room.
Yeah.
But that was the longest set I've done at a show. And I actually had a situation where I cut my dead dad jokes out of my set because my friend called me the day before and he's like, my dad unexpectedly passed on Monday and I'm coming to the show.
Oh yeah, then you don't do this.
So that was like 3 minutes. And I was like, I have to go with my best alternate material to fill up my long set.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have told me that my rapper joke is their favorite.
Okay.
But I think it's very crowd oriented. There was like some older folks in the crowd that day that are like
if I remember correctly, it was a very older crowd.
That they're like, what is he talking about?
And that's the weird thing is, like, especially in that venue, like it can be all over the road sometimes, but you'll get like that very old white Plymouth crowd. Yeah. Where you're like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And, you know, because just like we'll have, you know, comics on, I'll know some of their bits, and you're like, okay. Yeah. I wonder if we're going to have any walkouts today.
Yeah. I did that joke in a room full of people, like, there's nobody like under 35, and it killed. Yeah. 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 So that one, from my learning experience, is crowd specific.
Yeah. But I mean, that's one of those you figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
What's the furthest away that you've traveled to do a show? Like, have you started like traveling?
Weymouth. I'm doing the Red.
You said you did Boston. That's bullshit.
Well, those aren't really shows though.
Yeah.
It's like a glorified open mic.
Okay.
So yeah, I've traveled to Providence and Boston for open mics, but
yeah.
I'm doing one of the Red Nun shows coming up.
Yep.
So that will be the farthest I traveled.
Dude,
was at Dennisport.
It is the opposite of Plymouth, where there's not a ton of comedy shows and people come out for them.
Yeah.
Like, AJ's been doing Red Nun, I think, like 6-8 years, something like that. Like
They just had their 150 or something.
150th
A show. Yeah.
Yeah, and like he does Knockabout. Knockabout is really good. We helped Bob Giannini promote his show at 400 East in Harwich, and that sells out like every show. And I'm always like, fucking Cape Cod.
Yeah. Well, actually, the 150th Red Nun show might have passed or it might be coming up. I can't remember now.
Yeah,
But
it might have passed by the time this comes out. Who knows?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's just he's got Lenny Clark coming to Knockabout again.
Yeah.
With
Legend.
With Jimmy J.J. Walker, which I was like, wow, I forgot all about that guy, which I don't even know if you know. He was like a 1980s like sitcom. He was like a totally different character, but kind of like Urkel.
Gotcha.
Everybody knew JJ. Like he had a catchphrase that people would like quote out, like out and about in real life. It was just that kind of like. It was one of those things where you like, society is like, oh my god, I love him, and then kind of like if you really stop and think about it, you're like, oh, this poor guy, like he's gonna always live under that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Pigeonhole.
40 years later,
Yeah.
and he's still like Jimmy JJ. Like his character was JJ.
Yeah, it's a great venue at Knockabout. They always put on the best shows there.
Knockabout is a super cool place, and it's such a small tap room that they have managed to use the like land around it in such a great way.
Yeah,
you know?
It was fun. I saw Christine Hurley there. She's
great,
fantastic. I'm gonna see Fitzy there coming up next week. Fitzy, I'm wicked excited for that.
Yeah. I've known Christine Hurley since before I moved to Plymouth. We all used to hang around at the. Actually, you were saying how like you oh, I got to go back to Brewery 44 before they close. Inebri-art got started at the Fridays in Plymouth.
Oh, rest in peace to that one too. Yeah.
So when it switched over to Cafe Ocho, I was like, oh, I gotta go check it out. And like to this day, I'll still see like bartenders, and I'm like, I can't believe that I was like at Fridays tending bar, and you guys were on the other side at the time. Like Inebri-art was like, it didn't have a name.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, oh my god, like, and like we were there when it started, and you're doing so much more now. Christine Hurley used to wait tables there.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and sometimes would do the trivia.
Nice.
Like she would
I can see that for sure.
And
she's a queen.
Yeah, every year they did, I think they call it like the Bartender Olympics or something. You know, like when they flip the bottles around.
Yeah, yeah.
But I shouldn't say all, most of the bartenders sucked at it. And that was the fun part. And she would like MC it. And they had like a 50-50 raffle, and like I got up to go to the bathroom, and I'm coming out of the bathroom, and I hear Christine Hurley going, Andy Driscoll, what? Oh, he's gone pee-pee potty? And I'm like, oh, you'd be fucking kidding me.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
I met her at that show at Knockabout, and I introduced myself, and I was just talking to her, and we found out that we were neighbors for like 4 or 5 years.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, she lived like across the street, like 3 houses down, and I told my sister that, and she was like, I remember people used to always talk that there was a famous comedian in our neighborhood.
Yeah, and she's
and I was like that totally missed me back then.
Yeah, it's just so funny because like she got to the point. I remember like her being like, I'm not doing trivia anymore. And we're like, oh, she's like, I get paid way more to MC like real shows, and I'm here doing trivia. And we're like, yeah, we don't care. We just want to play trivia. But yeah, she's super sweet person, and I'm so happy for her. It's just, that's one of those, like, to look back and be like, that it's crazy like what's come out of that Fridays. Like she's come out of that Fridays, and Inebri-art's come out of that Fridays. One of the bartenders who was kind of like part of the start of Inebri-art,
my cousin came out in a stretcher one night.
Oh, really? I had a friend who left in a stretcher, too.
That was a joke.
Oh, no, I had a friend who left in a stretcher. I was going to be like, oh, my God, do you know Natalie? She blew her knee out, but it wasn't a bad thing. I mean, it was a bad thing, but it was not alcohol related.
Yeah, I was making a joke.
Oh, okay. I just thought we knew someone. No, but it was like my buddy that kind of started Inebri-art with us. he's like kind of a big deal in like the nerd art world now, and
Heck yeah.
yeah, he's done like 3D printed action figures.
Oh, nice.
And like John Cena owns one, James Gunn owns one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like he's kind of a big deal. Yeah, it's so funny. It's nice to see.
I'm gonna go searching for talent at Red Robin now.
But it's to me, it's one of those. I feel like creative people gravitate towards each other.
Yeah.
Me and AJ have been friends for quite a while now, and it's like I just was like, I haven't had a comedian on the podcast before, and searched for comics in the area, and that's how I became friends with AJ. And we've stayed friends because I think we're both creative people, kind of like minds that want to see other creative people do well, behind us. And
Yeah.
so I think this area has a lot of that. There's not a lot of gatekeeping. There's a lot of people with more experience that are like, here, let me hold the door for you.
Yeah.
And I love that about this area.
I can't wait to get up there and shut the gate. No, I'm just kidding.
That'd be such a dick move. It'd be funny. You gotta like shut the door.
No matter where my journey takes me, I'll always remember you and AJ and Nestor and Chris opening the door for me.
Yeah, and I mean, like to me, like the biggest thank you would be just make sure you hold it for the next guy.
Yeah.
Like, if someone's like, Mr. Jimmy Doherty, I want to be a stand-up comic too, and you'd be like, fucking call AJ. I kind of asked you, like, is there like a big long term? Is there like a smaller goal? Like, are you like, oh, my goal by the end of next year is to headline a show, or like, have you set those kind of small incremental steps?
So this might sound silly, but it's hard for me to quantify when I'll be ready to headline, or when I'm ready to make money or anything like that. So one thing I have my eye on is like these comedians that have been doing it for longer than me.
Yeah.
Have book enough shows that they make these cool graphics with all their shows on it.
Oh yeah.
Where
sure,
I'm like, mine will look sad if I just have 2 shows. You know what I mean? Whereas a girl I'm doing a show with next week, she's posting like 3 shows every weekend. She's like, this is the show I'm doing Saturday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like,
yeah.
So the goal is to do that where I could be like, this is my July, and it has like 8 shows on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like 8 or 9 shows on it.
I don't think that's silly at all. I think that's a really respectable goal it's a realistic goal. Like, you can achieve that for sure.
Yeah. So by next year, I want to be having those monthly where I'm like, hey, look at all these shows you can come to.
Yeah.
Where I like actually have a calendar, because even at the point where I had the most shows booked,
it
was even still weird because I just had shows where they were like, hey, yeah, you can do a set. I wasn't even like really booked.
Yeah.
They were just like, hey, yeah, come in, I'll fit you in.
But and this is from a more marketing standpoint. So if I am comedy booker A and I have all these comics that I can choose from, and I know that this person, and it's so hard to be like, this person's funnier than that person because it's so subjective. But
unless it's me.
But like, this person I think is funnier than that person. However, this person promotes the show, shares it around, has a following.
Yeah.
From just a financial standpoint, you're going to look at that other person that you might not think is as funny because you're like, they're going to bring people. They're going to talk it up. They're going to get the word out.
That's been a source of anxiety for me because the first show that I got booked for was the first Proof 22 show that AJ did.
Yep.
And I sold the place out with all my friends.
And that's one of those I've seen that happen.
I'm like, do AJ and Nestor think that I'm funny, or do they think I sell a lot of tickets?
I'll tell you what, it can be both. There are local comics that I'm like, oh, I hope they put this guy on the show because he sells a lot of tickets. Doesn't mean I don't think he's funny. I just know he sells a lot of tickets. But it's always kind of like a bubble, because they'd be like, I'm new and I'm local, and all their friends and family will come out, and then the next time a few of their friends and family, and then like you find when you're 405 episodes into your podcast, no one listens to it.
Yeah.
Because like they're like, oh yeah, Andy's got a podcast. It's good. I don't fucking know. I don't listen to it.
I listen to 4 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Dan Mahoney's like, I listen to the part that I'm on. Yeah. I've never been in a relationship with anyone who's listened to the podcast, because they're like, oh, that's cool, and they'll listen to a few, and then they never listen again, because they're like, I can fucking talk to you whenever. Like, why am I going to listen to you?
Yeah.
It's so normal. And in some ways, I think it's better, because you want honest feedback. You don't want like, oh, my mom thinks I'm funny and comes to all my shows. It would be very nice if your mom was supportive and comes to all the shows.
My aunt's an author.
Yeah.
And she was having me pass her first book around to my friends that like barely know her, because she didn't want just feedback from family.
Yeah. There's an artist that is an acquaintance friend of mine, and I haven't done this in a long time, but when I was actively trying to make my art better, his name's Adam Miller, and I would send him like images and be like, tell me what you think. And I did it because I knew him well enough that I could ask him to do that, but not so well that like he blew smoke up my ass, to the point where sometimes I'm like, you could be a little nice. You don't have to be so fucking mean. But I mean, that's what I wanted. Like, I wanted honest feedback, and I wanted someone to be like, I don't really like that at all, and here's the list of reasons why, and I'd be like, all right. Most of those are valid, but the one where you said I'm ugly would seem out of line. But no, I mean, and that's so I think family being supportive is great, but like you can't make a living off of your family coming to your comedy shows.
Do you have fam come to the Inebri-art events?
So my kids, when they come to the Inebri-art events, they expect to get paid. So fuck those two. And Inebri-art didn't exist when my parents were alive.
Oh,
so
damn.
no, it's like you said your dead dad jokes.
He would think they were hilarious, for the record.
Oh, my dad was fucking funny, man. Like, and in a very inappropriate way. So like, yeah, I've cracked jokes at funerals before, and people are like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh, come on, that was funny. Yeah, and it's I have found both my parents passing to be very motivating in kind of a like, hey, life is short, get off your ass kind of way.
Yeah.
And I can look back, and so when my father passed, within 6 months I opened up my comic book shop.
Oh, nice.
Like, left work and opened up a comic book shop.
Just want to follow the dream.
Yeah, and it was kind of like life short. Like, what the fuck am I doing? And then shortly after my mother's passing, like, Inebri-art, like, kicked into high gear. And so, I you know, Dead Dad Club is a thing.
Yeah,
and
that was another big thing about the comedy was
was your dad recent?
No, it was actually, I was 10.
Oh, okay. So it's a long time.
I had a rough childhood, and comedy and being goofy and silly was definitely an escape for reality, and it just kind of became my personality.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows Robin Williams was like struggling and was kind of like, hey, I make other people laugh to kind of cover up how shitty my life is, and his life wasn't shitty, but like it is being a creative person is a weird double-edged sword, and I've talked about this a ton of times on the podcast, but I've always said, like, are you creative to deal with your dark side, or do you have a dark side because you're creative? Like, I feel like they go hand in hand, and I'm not sure which comes first.
This is the most creative I've been in my life, and not that I wasn't creative before, but I was more imaginative than creative.
Yeah,
I would write a lot, just random stuff. I'd write little raps that weren't very good. I'd write stories. A big fantasy nerd.
Yeah.
We wrote a whole. We used to like draw monsters in my creative writing class and make stories about them in high school, and
Yeah.
that was where I started writing. And then I started writing poetry in college, and then went through some dark times in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
And just kind of went away from like having hobbies.
Yeah. But
That suppressed my creativity, and I didn't really bounce back creatively until I started doing comedy.
But this is one of those things, is like people who have kind of had everything handed to them, haven't had real struggle in their life, have the quote unquote good life.
Yeah.
They're not real funny.
No.
Because, what is that? Tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Yeah.
And I remember, so my mother passed 9 years ago? Was I living in Plymouth then? Yes, I was. It's probably about 9 years ago. She died of leukemia. She was diagnosed around January. She was gone before Easter, so it was like super fast.
Oh.
And so she would needed rides to chemo. I'd drive her to chemo. And I'd always bring my sketchbook because there's nothing to do. So I'd sit there and draw, and she'd watch me draw. And so there's like one sketch, and I drew something for her, and she like kept it in like her fucking hospital room, whatever. And so like after she passed, I kept it in that sketchbook. And I used to carry it around with me. It was like small. I used to bring it to the bar and I'd draw in it. I don't really do that anymore. But my buddy knocked over a beer and spilled it on the sketchbook.
Oh no.
And at first he's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, whatever, dude, it's a sketchbook. And he's like, "Yeah, like what's your sketchbook doing on it?" And he started like giving me shit like it was my fault. And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. It's my fault that you spilled beer on the sketchbook that has my dead mom's favorite drawing in." And he was just like, "Oh," and it was, to me, it was the funniest fucking thing. And I just gave him so much shit to the point where I had to be like, "Don't fucking cry. I'm just messing with you." And it was just like that. I mean, that's like the kind of fucking twisted, that's shit I find funny.
Yeah. I have a little bit of that too, because when you first told me the story, or drawing the pictures for your mom.
Yeah.
The first thought in my head was like, if that was my mom, like, would I be writing dick jokes for her?
At the time, I was obsessed with drawing hands, and I do remember just specifically drawing one of someone flipping just like a bird. But yeah, so that's so you don't have a long list of a slick graphic of where you're gonna be, but if our listeners wanted to go check out to find out where you're gonna be, do they follow you on Instagram, Facebook? Like, where do you go to find out where Jimmy's going to be?
Okay, so can I plug my pod?
Yeah, you can do whatever. This is like the promotional part.
Okay, so I'm Jimmy the Goose on Instagram, Jimmy.the.goose on Instagram. And we're also releasing our podcast next month called Crushing Brews, me and my cousin and his best friend.
Nice.
Where we talk about trying to make it and be funny.
Yeah. Nice.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And follow Inebri-art because I do some of their shows sometimes.
Yep. I think the next one's coming up at New World, and actually this won't even be out by then.
On Thursday, but
yeah.
Every third Thursday of every month.
That's right.
At New World.
Yep. And Barrel Huzzy sometimes, and Lucky Goat, and all the places. Follow Inebri-art.
And Jimmy the Goose.
And Jimmy the Goose. Do you have like do you put up like clips online yet?
No, so I that's actually another goal of mine, but I have like an hour of video.
Yeah.
Some of it's usable, some of it's not. I'm working on upgrading my equipment.
Have your last set from New World too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I can send it over to you. I'm pretty sure I have it.
Yeah, so I have a lot, and it's just a matter of parsing through it. So the best audio I got was at the Aquatic.
Yep.
And my friend sat in front of the camera.
That's good, though, because then you get laughs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, nice. Cool.
But I will be releasing some video content very soon.
Awesome.
I got to get on YouTube too, because that's how you send. A lot of times, how you send tape to festivals and stuff.
Oh, yeah,
we're working on. We're working on it.
Yeah, it's dude. It never fucking stops. There's always something to be done.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for coming and talking to us.
I had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. Never been interviewed for like anything before, so
yeah,
that was fun.
Our very low key interview style, but listeners, we'll catch you guys again next Monday, and Jimmy, I'll probably see you like tomorrow at the BBC or something. That's a British beer company for listeners.
Pause.
Yeah, make that the British beer company. Middle Street. Go say hi to Big Jack.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Yeah. Have I told you about like so? People always give me phone numbers for shit, and I have to put like codes next to their name so I know who the fuck it is. And Charlie from the BBC was giving me his number, and I put him as Charlie BBC, and then I'm like, wow. And someone's like, what? I'm like, someone's gonna go through my phone one day and be like, Dirty Angela, Filthy Walter, Charlie BBC. What the fuck does this guy do? And it is just like one weird name after another all the way through my phone list.
You gotta do that joke on stage, dude.
I can do that. You know, who's it? Houghton is always like, oh, you should come to an open mic. You should come to an open mic. I'm like, stop. I don't have time to do the shit I need to do. I don't need to work on a set. But
just do it one time. I bet you'd have mad fun with it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But then I'd get obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same. But all right, man. That's it.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, listeners. And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.